4, 3, 2. Congratulations, you have discovered another meta egg where we blow your mind with insane fan theory. As usual, in the Saturday morning, this is celebratory because this is the first Saturday morning. I think this might be the first one we did on a Saturday morning. It's the most recent one, or the most recent ones have not been on Saturday mornings at all. But our guest, as usual, is Frank Zero.
Good morning. Hello.
Frank,
Good
tell us what we're
day.
doing today, man. As
Yes,
usual,
sir.
we've hooked up 3 different cartoons, but we have some bonuses as well.
Yes, sir. So we're following the theme or the motif of floating or flying pyramids who are either inhabited by aliens or mummy aliens or controlled by magicians. And usually this is symbolic, perhaps with other episodes that tie in, or as a standalone thing to talk about the grid energy of the Earth and how to kind of take over the grid by taking over the major pyramids or energy sources or however the villain may be utilizing the pyramids for his spell, so to speak. But it's very symbolic of taking over the ley lines.
Oh yeah.
And in some shows, the ley lines become more specific in other episodes, like about Bermuda Triangle. In others, it's just the pyramids, and you get to see this grid over the Earth, type of deal.
So which cartoon do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about, I guess, Spider Woman, Pyramid of
Spider-Woman.
Terror.
Awesome. 1979. Last time we talked about the second episode, Realms of Darkness, but this is the first episode of Spider-Woman, which was called this is our title track, Pyramids of Terror. So, okay, what are your theories on why? I mean, we've already discussed that this series overall is bonkers. Like, it actually has like a live action trippy episode where it kind of crosses the fourth wall. But why pyramids to start off with?
I mean, it's just think about how bizarre it is to have a children's series, and episode one is like it's mummy aliens with floating pyramids, and episode two is black magic takes over NASA. It's very alarming first two episodes,
Right,
but this one is the
right.
most humorous out of all the series we'll be discussing with the use of the floating flying pyramid. So this was also one of the earliest. The pyramid doesn't fly, but there's very interesting interaction with the pyramid in excuse me, I just lost my train of thought there. The
Bring it back.
pyramid.
Bring it back. Get in the body. Get in the body.
Yeah, so oh, I'm sorry. So the pyramids in the Star Trek animated series from around the same time. This also would have
Oh,
been one of the first animated pyramid examples. Does not fly, but it's the whole Kukulkan episode and this serpent god that's angry with us for not continuing some kind of sacred geometry project across the earth with more pyramids and things like that. And then this is the other earliest episode, which I'm saying is the
oh
most
yeah.
humorous of all of them, but there very clearly you see the pyramids floating in the back. And
Yeah.
then as we move to modern times, I just wanted to mention this to get it out the way. We do have a live action film called Immortals about the returning sort of Egyptian Anunnaki types in modern times that has on its cover the floating black pyramid, and throughout the film we see that motif. But otherwise, I think it's all just in these cartoons, and you have to keep in mind that it's used in a very similar way in most of these cartoons, particularly the 90s ones. This one kind of sticks out with the mummy creatures flying the pyramids around and not a lot of other esoteric explanation or whatever.
No, there's really no explanation. The weirdest thing is they make a point out of saying that it was like an ancient race that crash landed and that the mummies were quote unquote quote the crew. And so they were supposed to be mummified until a certain time. I don't understand. There's no logic here. And
Right.
then they were supposed to come out and mummify everyone else so that they could take over the planet or use them as crew.
Sure. It's literally an ancient astronaut kind of tale, but
Right.
then instead of using like cryogenic sleep to fix the whole time issue, they are attempting to use mummification technology, almost like Apocalypse. So they look
Yeah.
ridiculous. If you think of this as a type of technology which they
Yeah.
knew would hold them in cryostasis for centuries or whatever it was, maybe the writer was thinking on that level and the artist simply couldn't make it look that complicated or esoteric. But oh boy.
It's random.
Yes.
But I mean, in a way, it's related to G.I. Joe, I think, because although G.I. Joe doesn't necessarily start off as like some ancient alien, that's where we wind up. And
Yeah.
it's the same motif because when we're looking at this needs to be mentioned, we're looking at a bunch of first episodes here. So this, of course, is the first episode of Spider-Woman, then the first episode of of G.I. Joe, like 1985, the real series, not the first two miniseries. But the first episode is also, I mean, it's labeled Pyramids of Darkness, I think is
Yeah.
what it's labeled.
Yeah, you're
Not
right.
terror like this one, but it's the same thing. Like just a few years later, they're using the same motif, if you will.
Yeah.
And then,
But we
and
have the
then,
blue energy, the blue ley line energy, which we also see in ThunderCats and Conan across
right,
the earth
Conan
and
for sure.
overlaying the pyramids. Yeah.
And Conan's the last episodes, but the Black Pyramid is used throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
Then what do we else we have? Oh, let's see. G.I. Joe. Then we have ThunderCats, which came out
ThunderCats.
at the exact same time as G.I. Joe 1985.
And
And
had a
its
very
entire
similar thing going on.
mythology is basically Black Pyramids.
Right, right. It's evil magician, which we have a Conan and a GI
Immortal.
Joe
Yeah.
equivalent. We have a
Basically the
evil
same as
magic
Spider-Woman, come to
user.
think of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just not that clear. We don't have a single character as like the the black magician of the group. Like I always think of this as kind of Nazi occultists. Like you always have a military and bad guys and the Cobra army or whatever, and then you always have some esoteric Rasputin kind of person in their clique that does the magic and the astrology and the ley line energy or whatever. And it is very similar looking in GI Joe, Conan, and ThunderCats, the way that the blue-ish energy resonates around black pyramids. It's very black in the case of almost all of these, except Spider-Woman here. I believe they're purple and gold or something. But
I'm
even in
trying to
that
look up this
that live
movie
action
that you called,
movie,
what was it,
Immortals.
Immortal? The one with the
Yeah,
pyramids? I saw a picture of it, but I can't
yeah,
seem so there's this movie called Immortal or
yeah. That's it, man.
and
I was confusing it with Immortals, but it's immortal and it has a pyramid and a female kind of androgynous alien being on the cover, and then in the film we see the pyramids flying around and so forth.
yeah, I definitely saw I can't find the new picture of it, but it came up as a pyramid right away. I mean, in the same aesthetic with the one flying through the air.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, there
Exactly.
it is. 2019. That's not
Right. Not long
huh.
ago, mate.
Wow. But I guess that I mean that's basically the same as Stargate, which would have been like the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Stargate
Holy crap. I
concept is
mean, they actually
something.
have like chorus head. Okay, here, let me show what we're talking about here. Um
The Stargates were just as prominent at that time as these other motifs we see throughout the cartoons. Well, throughout synchro mysticism, we have pyramids and pyramids, and then Stargates. It's just a whole theme by itself. The octagon shaped stargates and so forth. And yes, that is the cover of Le Film.
Le
So
film
I was
immortel.
saying this is the only this is the only live action depiction of the flying pyramid motif that I've been able to dig up. So
Wow. I mean, they have like Horus heads and stuff of that nature.
that's the names of
That's
the
pretty.
characters. They're Egyptian deities, straight up. But some sort of transhumanist, futuristic apocalypse technology type. Uh, have you seen the various videos that are like uh, three known alien species, or the origin of the Anunnaki, or a whole movie about Thoth or whatever? But they use all this seriously bizarre, holographic looking neon AI video art throughout the entire documentary. Have you seen any of these?
No,
I was gonna explain just something that overlapped with the kind of motif and the look of what AI seems to think Egyptian deities look like, and what like weird X-Men comics seem to think Egyptian deities look like, mixed with the magic uh,
It's
concept.
funny because I mean, you're a big fan. You do a great Alan Moore impression, but and
Thank you, sir.
we've talked a lot about Alan Moore on here, but I mean, that guy actually says that when he started experimenting with comics and magic, that he saw Egyptian deities. I mean, everything historically speaking that we think about magic comes from Egypt. So some of these are like no brainers, right? To a
Yeah,
certain extent. I just don't and aliens have been an aspect of comics since the very beginning if you think about what Superman actually is. But
and pulp comics and all that, such
right, of
obsessive.
course.
It was like the outer limits ideas we talk about bringing humans into their world or bringing aliens into our world or whatever. All that was a super popular concept with pulp, and a lot of the ideas you see Philip K. Dick taking credit for righteously as a normal author also came from that pulp kind of comic world. Still just talking about simulations, alien invasions, the the same themes over and over, or weird Egyptian stuff going on. One of the earliest color Star Trek comics is about this insane pyramid cult and their sun cult, and they're teaching the crew magic, just like we know the cartoon did with the magics of Magastu. Interesting stuff.
Okay, I found something that I remembered. This is also 1985. How wild. Now check this out. I think that this is it right here. Yes. In the first episode, the Sterling family, Hal, June, Trace, Gina, and Smith, take a tour of the interior of the Great Pyramid of Giza during a conjunction of the planets, which take place once in 10,000 years. They are mysteriously transported to a planet which may or may not also reside in a parallel universe. The other planet, Thel, is inhabited by humans and some androids and divided into this is live action 1985 and divided into isolated provinces with different governments and ways of life. Travel between provinces is strictly regulated by zone troopers. And also, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's like these obelisk. Like if you look down here, it says the series of Egyptian like stone markers, obelisk, each with one eye. There's like these, and this was like on what is this, ABC or something?
Right.
CBS
Yeah, yeah.
1985. So at the same time, GI Joe is playing with the. Okay, so let's move over to GI Joe because we need
But
to
first,
establish that there's
as you do that,
definitely
look up
pyramids
the
in Giza.
gods below. Look up the gods below on Google or Wiki and show everybody the synopsis or any visuals we can get of that right off the bat before I leave it out the formula.
The gods below.
Yes, sir.
Gods Below is a book.
No, 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 no. I'm sorry. It's a Look up GI Joe. The gods below GI Joe. Just add GI Joe to the formula. I'm sorry.
Okay, the gods below GI Joe. G.
True.
Oh, Joe.
Okay,
Oh yes, your
so
Egyptian gods. This is what. Okay.
this is an Egyptian initiation into their magic or their underworld. Undertake. You see Toth right there. He's glowing in
Oh
sort of
yeah, the blue
neon
guy.
colors for the 90s. Yeah. So they go in this underground Egyptian initiation ritual, and that's basically the episode. I mean, their heart is weighed, against a feather. The god Matt or goddess Matt. I'm messing up
Wow.
terms here, but yeah. So I don't know. I couldn't even think what a synopsis would be besides they have a complete magical initiation
Well,
under.
here's the synopsis. Cobra Commander attempts to use GI Joe to find the treasures inside a recently discovered Egyptian tomb. The groups encounter the ancient gods of Egypt and are tested to prove their worthiness, like what you said about the feather.
The heart being weighed.
Alpine, Barbecue, Bazooka, Duke, Lady Jane, Baroness, Cobra Commander, Crimson Guards, Firefly, and Scrape Iron. I love the fact that they have there's Wikipedias for just about any fan base now.
Yeah, totally. It is very helpful. But yeah, so all of those characters go through a Disney ride version of a totally serious Egyptian initiation ritual. And I just
Right.
thought of that while you were describing the Otherworld show or whatever the name of
Yeah,
that
but
show.
that's still that doesn't explain why the hell we have the Egyptian pyramids in the first episode of GI Joe.
Oh, sure. No,
First off, in reference to our last episode that dealt with shuttle launches, the first episode of GI Joe begins with a shuttle launch.
which is just unspeakably bizarre.
Right.
And one of the episodes about the pyramids has a launch in it, or is this the first one of Pyramids of Darkness?
This is the Pyramids of Darkness, the first episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Because there's
Sorry.
two
Yeah.
things.
This is actually the footage I saw of the shuttle in the web. I was just hoping we got that. Sorry, I was confused with another.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about Spider-Man, but yeah, like
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
web involved. That's
Exactly.
dope.
Yeah, and did you see them web up the pyramids into cubes on the last
Yes,
episode? Yeah, so Spider-Woman finds a way to make the pyramids encased in cubes. It's just the web suggests the geometry of a cube. It doesn't actually fully cover the pyramid at all. And then she can control them via her webs, of course. But what a strange bit of business.
it is a strange bit of business because the GI Joe also brings back in the idea of the cube.
Yeah,
Because
the
once
cube
Snake
was
Eyes, both Snake Eyes and Shipwreck are in the bottom basement of the Cobra base, which is almost like the 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 Doom. You remember in the DC comics when you had the Justice League and then the guys of Doom or whatever, like they had their own
yeah,
base. I
yeah,
like the fact that like the Cobra Commander's got this lair up underneath a waterfall in the middle of a jungle, right?
yeah.
Like, anyways,
But there's an actual
then
black cube.
when they're
There's a
down there,
whole
they see the cubes, and the cubes are part of the plan that the cubes make a pyramid. So
right.
even though it's like they're not connected, they're connected in ideas. It's weird.
But there's a whole episode about a giant black cube. Or multiple ones. Is this what we're looking at right now? The cubes that are
Yeah, this is
connected.
GI Joe, the first episode of the
But are
series.
those the giant black? Is that the weather dominator? What technology is a giant black cube? Is it this thing?
This
I mean,
the Pyramid of Darkness is made out of cubes that they
gotcha.
see in
Okay,
the
the
basement.
black cubes. I got you,
Right.
man. I'm sorry. I didn't know they were the same cubes. I was trying to figure
Oh no,
that
no,
out.
that's cool. That's cool. It's cool because it just doesn't make any sense. It's like a non sequitur. Like, what the hell is
Yeah,
happening? Why is this happening?
absolutely.
I don't know, man. I still like this. There's still the feeling that I got when I watched them when I was a kid, and it's not nostalgia. It's something else. Like
Yeah.
they're still
Like
good.
there's an ominous thing that happens with your intuition where you're watching so much back-to-back programming about the future But there's a real thing that happens with your conscious mind, which is seeing all these symbols being repeated and seeing the synchromysticism as a kid or predictive programming as a kid and not really knowing what to do with that. Why is G.I. Joe telling me my country won't have a currency one day? Why
Right.
is Conan telling me what G.I. Joe told me about the pyramids? It's very strange.
So yeah, this is what I meant earlier. What we have is like the miniseries and the first 1983 miniseries for GI Joe. I was listening to these interviews with I think his name is Jim Shooter. Have you ever
Yeah,
heard of Jim Shooter?
of course.
And he's talking because he was he ended up being one of the individuals who had written like all of my favorite comics.
Oh, okay.
But I ended up listening to him talk about GI Joe because Marvel actually developed Cobra. Like Marvel
Yeah.
was the individual because we need bad guys. We need girl villains and we need uh like girl Joes because at that point there was no there it was like a totally different idea to what GI Joe was
Yeah.
until it stepped into comic format, and that kind of dictated this whole other idea of like needing vehicles and so forth and so on.
Yeah, well,
But
Larry Hama did most of the comics, and then when it became more figure-based, you get into the need for vehicles and all these other things. But then the show is a totally different animal. Like, the whole idea of Cobra and everything was just a Jack Kirby comic many decades before, where Jack Kirby just had this shape-shifting reptilian. I forget if he was a lawyer or something, or he was like some kind of weird secret agent or something like that. And that's the only Cobra we know up until the cartoon creates this
mm,
or I'm sorry, Cobra's in the it's just like a bad guy military force in the comics. And then we get
mm,
the reptilian bit and the shapeshifting and all that once we have yet another cartoon in the 80s or 90s with shapeshifting reptilian
we
as
have
the predominant villain, if not a villain available, like the Dr. Connor and Spider-Man.
right. Let's see, Spider Woman, GI Joe. I just think that it's really just weird the fact that GI Joe basically starts off as almost like paramilitary, and the first two episodes are basically that. It gets a little weird into like mind control and parallel universes, but really and truly it's kind of a Jack in the Box when you get down to the movie, and all of a sudden boom, we're talking about crab like snake aliens.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I did notice that in the movie they are using footage from the episode that we were just watching, the first episode. So it's like they are tying back and making a connection here. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Just by oh, hey, my friend. Yes. Ooh. Thank you for the compliments. All right.
We've tried to figure that out, and so that's why I interviewed the writers and artists to get a little closer to that. And some of these shows, you needed a top aerospace security clearance to get in and just draw or write for your everyday's work to try to get the cartoon done. Others of these had absolutely nothing to do with secrecy, but you see somebody repeating a theme through multiple shows, so it's rather suspect. The more a person was like that, the more impossible they were to interview. But so far, the answer we've come up with is that about half of it was really, really concentrated predictive programming. About half of it was people who were creative and familiar with ideas like Philip K. Dick or Ray Bradbury or things like this, and Jack Kirby's work and stuff and all of that in a hodgepodge wound up focusing over and over on conspiracies or mind control or pyramids or ancient aliens or
Is
whatever.
that just what interesting though? Like are conspiracies and
Yeah, that's
everything?
half of it.
I mean, that just makes your imagination go wild. That just makes
Yeah.
the idea that there's some sort of like there's some sort of culture that's up underneath the mundane existence of everyday life
Yeah,
is
but
it,
like
it
To entertain people, you could say that in the future, Cobra finds a way to take over America. But to tell small children watching the show that there won't be US dollars in a few years because of the way they're taking over the government, that's
Right.
what
Where
gets
I mean,
weird. When you go
you
back and
mentioned
you look
the
at the what you've been taught, the predictive programming stuff that's definitely in there becomes disturbing and alarming for anyone just thinking, "Oh, wait, I'm watching this as an adult and I'm able to understand what themes they're packing in here. But why in the F would children need to have this in every show they watch? Why would there be a music can control your brain episode
there
in
is
every show? Why wouldn't it just be one writer thought that was creative and cool to try out, not three writers went across six different shows and repeated the theme of there's a band out there that's going to control your mind? What? Why? For children.
all right. So let's go. I mean, it's to bring in Conan because we've already seen this episode when we were talking about the shape shifting reptiles. We already talked about G.I. Joe with the shape shifting reptiles. I mean, that's your point is hard to argue with. The shows are unrelated though,
Right.
but you
Supposedly.
still have pyramids, ley lines, portals to other dimensions, and this idea that the reptilian race is older than humans.
Yeah, so why does every single show have the reptilian shapeshifters, but also has a portal or a stargate or a way to another dimension or beings trying to come through a portal? And then all of them also have a mutation plot line where you're seeing the haunting symptoms of someone going through a physical mutation, and then that either gives them powers or makes them horrid, and society divides over what they're going to do about the mutated people and the non-mutated people. And I mean Street Sharks, Ninja Turtles, and it goes on and on. But then within those shows, X-Men, there's an episode about just Jubilee coping with her mutation. There's the Carter character, the Lil Wayne like character in Ninja Turtles, and you're just seeing the trauma of him going through a mutation. In Street Sharks, they specifically have like a eugenics evil doctor guy that's always trying to pull some type of mutation thing on certain types of characters or groups of characters. So I have no idea like why they were overwhelming us with just specific theories, but everywhere we looked. Unless, they were all just reading David Icke. They were all just reading, Carl Van Daniken or whatever. They were all just Eric Van Daniken. Excuse me. Is it Carl? I'm getting it confused. But the Ancient Aliens type stuff, where they all just reading like, that cool 70s blend of fairies and UFOs and mythology from that era. Uh, why does it seem like sanctioned? Like, why does it seem like they had to put all those themes in every show? That's what I really have trouble answering. So, like, there's mind control episodes of every show that I could tell you is to make kids, after being trauma-based mind controlled at a young age, disassociate and go, "Oh, these children with these psychic powers that have been traumatized or mind controlled, that is in this fiction, and so that can't apply to my life because adults will tell me that's in GI Joe. That's not something that could happen to me." If you're trying to compartmentalize their memories better and giving them a lot of media about mental asylums and kids going crazy and kids with too large of an imagination or whatever. If that was part of like Monarch to have like a TV branch, this would start to make more sense. But when we look at how much the media is controlled, not by a few corporations or a few rich individuals, which everyone's obsessed with, but how serious intelligence organizations and the military wanted to and on the record have used mental manipulation from women smoking cigarettes and the whole like idea of advertising and Bernays and all that kind of stuff, all the way to the 50s being raised in this very robotic, weird kind of like, there's all these PSAs about just how to exist and how to be a person and how to treat your own emotions or interactions with people or whatever. And then how far, as they're mind controlling individuals and getting better and better at it and using subliminals and all this, how far do they go with the public with this? And does it stop at movies like Top Gun and Tom Clancy's novels and everything as a way to inform the public, or does it stop at Independence Day and the big blockbusters that are conditions us to think that a given disaster or a given conflict will look and act and sound like this, as opposed to what we might have read or in our imaginations or whatever. But then why do you overdo the operations for children involving mind control, black magic, and everything? And wouldn't that obviously just be an extension of what Fritz Springmeier says happens between the victim of mind control individually and this entire society and the media made for them to swallow? So those out there who are mind controlled have a constant um, sort of survey or a constant buffet, so to speak, of things to pick from as media that they think they're going, I chose to watch this show or this film, but it's all just loaded up as like this type of personality will go after these type of things, so we'll put these type of messages for those, like, we'll put this message in rap and hip hop and we'll put this message in, for boomers and commercials or whatever, to worry about buying gold. How much does that really occur in our everyday world is like a set of questions we need to answer before we get more specific, I think, about the answers to just cartoons. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble there.
No, it's good. I think that you also told me that you had written down something to gather your thoughts earlier.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Ramble on, my friend. Ramble
Okay.
on.
So everybody, this is just kind of a synopsis of what was going on with these episodes. The animated adventures of the 80s and 90s saw repeating concepts with regards to weather manipulation, conquered ley lines, and planetary grid vortexes, from ancient pyramids to Easter Island and its extraterrestrial denizens to the Bermuda Triangle vortex by name. One of the vital visual motifs across various shows involved floating, flying, or levitating pyramids, often triggered by magicians of the dark path, aliens, mummy aliens in the case of Spider-Woman, eternal beings such as Apocalypse and X-Men, evil magic users in the form of Rathamon from Conan, Serpentor of Cobra and G.I. Joe, and the Pyramids of Darkness. Conan and the Joes have mini-series dedicated to the Pyrrha weirdness, whereas Star Trek Animated had one Kukulkan Khan Pyramid Old Gods based episode. As our real Earth grid permits the awareness of many more pyramids across the world, the real alien and magic components are demonstrated to be an integral chapter of our authentic new revelations regarding our real planet's history. One may note within years of synchronistic analysis that pyramids and pillars and deemed pyramids are interchangeable symbols and vital to understanding the World Trade Center as well as pyramids as repeating motifs for decades now. The live action X-Men Apocalypse film also showcases his pyramid based magic. So it doesn't show the rest of the Earth in ley lines, but it shows him constructing pyramids, which is the power of his mind or whatever. And that's kind of like seeing Rathamon or Serpentor or whatever use all the grid energy in the pyramids across the world.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That was cool. This Joseph in the chat room, I don't know. I think that he's implying that most all of these stories have their root
In
in
Genesis 6?
Genesis 6, but it's basically the Nephilim, right? That's what we're talking about, is like
I would,
the
I would assume,
ancient
or the
astronaut idea.
I would
Let's see.
assume. I'm not familiar with the verse right off the bat.
Oh, we are also I mean, what do you know about ThunderCats? Going back and watching ThunderCats, and not, I didn't think that I was that big of a fan, but now I realize that I've seen a lot more of it than I remembered.
Right, right. It was one of these cartoons where the overall sound and spacing of the conversation between characters who talk like this and characters who talk like this would just lose me as a kid. So like any show where you had like and then hey everybody let's go and like it has that just ever annoying loop of like something falls, something explodes, and one of those characters says something obnoxious. I was not able to keep up with. Like my attention span just couldn't do it as a kid. So I've also seen probably all the episodes maybe 3 times and called myself a fan or whatever. But I really didn't retain much. I thought visually it was very interesting. I like watched it and liked the art and everything, but trying
Well,
to
I just
retain.
okay. Hear me out for a second, right? Because ThunderCats world might actually be our world, right?
Sure.
Because you have these creatures that come down. There's this mummy eternal Egyptian dude who's already on the planet and is like, I want these creatures who have animal heads off my damn planet, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then you have these mutants, which are basically the Nephilim that Joseph's talking about in the chat,
Yeah.
right? And so the whole thing is like they try to they try to take over the ThunderCats, get them off the dang planet because the mutants crash land and they're stranded here. They try to blow up the pyramid multiple times. There's multiple black pyramids. But what if those creatures with the heads are the Egyptian gods we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean
And
they're either that or they're like the Magog Gog, like at the point where there was Tartaria way back long ago, where there was like Tartaria and some other civilizations around the world, but they were habitually attacked by the Magog Gog mutants or they're at least giants and probably mutants of some kind. And here again we have this theme of mutation encircling
mutation.
the theme of Ancient Aliens, which is just batty, but it came up before. Yeah, the Thundercats may be hybrid species for that fight for good. The show may just make them seem like the good guys when they actually are attacking. Well, Mumra's pretty evil. I mean, he's like all the other dark magicians in that he's like a Nazi esotericist. He's not like a Western tradition or nature based kind of magician in any
Well, I
sense.
realized watching this episode how brutal Mumra actually was, because the fight scene between Lion-O and Mumra was very reminiscent of like Dragon Ball Z, where
Sure.
they're throwing blows and there's like some tumbling going on, and it's actually really good animation, I thought.
Yeah,
It
always.
had
Yeah,
uh,
it's
it had a
great
manga
animation.
feel. Like there's a lot of like, or a Kirby-esque kind of hard punch hit
Yeah.
version to it.
It also reminds me of that show where the cartoon where like 5 different people inhabited a mech like Power Rangers and they all had their own colors like Power Rangers, but it was an anime uh in like the exact time or slightly earlier than Thundercats, the animation at
Hmm.
least. Do you know what I'm
Well, it was
talking
like
about?
Silverhawks was around the same time period too, and
Yeah,
Silverhawk.
now that's a totally different but very interesting adventure. One day we'll have to cover the enigma that is Silverhawks and its action figure line, but
I
probably
just
not.
love doing this, man. I'll do this because to me it's like cool. There's multiple layers to what we're getting out of this. I can watch
Yeah,
these for entertainment, but I'm also like taking notes, and these little edited commercials we can use for later for different stuff. Like the episode that we had with Conan, there was a lot of back research that we found, like the
yeah,
Conan series derived conspiracy theories. and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like re-spits them out and gurgitates them out. But we ended up using that one again for this pyramid ley line episode. And so
Yes. But
there's
we're
like
also doing
we're
a great
building here.
service. We're doing a great service of giving people like, hey, I remember that show. I think it was cool when I was a kid. I don't want to just sit down and try to watch it. But now I have exactly what episodes have this zany ideas and visuals. And so I can sit down and just watch 1 or 2 episodes of 6 different series as opposed to going season 1. All right, another episode where the good guys fight clones of themselves. All right, another episode where the kind of fat guy can't really get around because he's fat and has a silly voice or whatever. And like you're going, why am I going to put time into watching more of this cartoon? But there's always something prolific right around the end or the edge of a season or whatever. If you just have the time to the art of this, everyone, is to go through a TV show that you recognize from the 80s and 90s, like a cartoon, and look at first just the titles, and something will just straight say UFO, sky visitors, Bermuda Triangle, the ghost inhabits the old desert, or something like that, and you'll get kind of a better idea which ones you want to watch and which ones maybe you can skip. But a lot of times you'll find a synopsis of 1 or 2 that just blows your mind, and that's how you can quickly kind of get around these shows and watch the episodes that are so much more intriguing than maybe some 30 to 70% of the rest of the show's aired episodes. Darkstalkers is a great one, man. Night Warriors in Japan, but I mean, great game. I always enjoyed. I thought it was the coolest alternative for Capcom to come up with. After coming up with some of the greatest fighters the world will ever know, all of a sudden they're like, why not a vampire-based anime kind of fighter? And it was just a really cool concept for when Darkstalkers initially came out. As a game form, I want to say somewhere between like 93 and 96, the first Darkstalkers. But it's great stuff. But I find the cartoon a little too.
The cartoon was a lot earlier. Like it's a lot earlier than I thought it would be. I was kind of impressed about how it's 1995.
Yeah. Okay. My guess was 93 or 96. So yeah, the cartoon could have been an amazing Ninja Scrolls looking anime, but instead they settled for I'm trying to think of the show right now with all the monsters in it. The Monster League-esque Saturday morning look. And that's all good and fine. I'm just noting that it could have been like Ninja Scrolls or Ghost in the Shell or something if they would have put a little effort into it. So here's our Darkstalker friends with their floating pyramids. This episode is.
So
What's that?
all right,
Oh,
let's recap. Go through your notes real quick and make sure there's nothing that we're forgetting here.
That's what I'm doing, buddy.
Let's see. I gotta admit, man, I kind of have a thing for Spider-Woman, bro.
No, it's she's pretty hot, even though she's a bunch of lines from the 70s. They draw her very, she's pretty shorty, you know what I'm saying? She's got the right proportions and all this shit and all this. I don't think we missed anything, but I did want to note real quick that there are actually 3 shows with subplot episodes there are 3 shows about mutation with episodes specifically about someone going through traumatic mutation, and those are Street Sharks, not Shorts, love. Street Sharks, X-Men, and Ninja Turtles. At least I remember more, but I'll find them one day. But other than that, bro, I think we covered everything. Everybody just got the point that Darkstalkers also has a pyramid episode.
This is a lot, though. This is a lot of like how they open, like especially we have the TV show in 1985. We have ThunderCats in 1985. We have G.I. Joe premiering in 1985, all with the pyramid, all leading with the Egyptian. The I mean, even the imagery is almost exactly the same. And
Absolutely.
then the Illuminati eye, it's almost weird because it's I don't know what to think. I don't know if it's meant to make us think these ideas or to make us think that these ideas are stupid. Or
I think it's to associate them with a fictional world. So a lot of it is to tell the most detailed, authentic version to children who it's going to go right over their head for the most part. But I think it's to keep reinducing the idea into the unconscious and keep relating to the conscious mind that this is the product of fiction only. So the New World Order, the No American Cash, the taking over of some technocratic future organization that uses dark magic to
that would go back.
capitalize
Okay.
off
All
war and
right.
suffering and all. What's that, buddy?
It's just interesting. I was thinking Fred Chrisman.
Yeah.
Like, so Fred Chrisman is that CIA agent who basically started out with the Mare Island stuff, and
He's
maybe
the
basically
FBI
what maybe
agent that was in charge of the X Files. He was also involved in
right.
one of the first UFO crash type things
But
with
wait, we got something here because they do the same thing in like Men in Black. Men in Black, they use the tabloids as sort of like this place to hide real facts.
yeah.
You get what I'm saying? But that's
Oh
kind of
sure,
like
yeah.
what Chrisman was doing, right? Chrisman was basically writing about stories that people were kind of gravitating towards as being true, and then like watering down the media with BS, so to speak.
Yeah, well that's like a Air Force Office of Special Investigation tactic. And that's what they did with Doty and what the film Mirage Men is about, because I can't think of all the names involved at the moment, but Mirage Men is about kind of giving individuals or UFO conventions all kind of overwhelming amounts of information that is somewhat based in fact and then largely to throw one off the path of real ideas. And Chrisman was the first one to have the X Files. In other words, he was the first agent to be put on the strange and the weird files, and has such an intimate relationship with the JFK assassination that it really starts to. It's another one of these things where you go, well, when you get into high strangeness and synchronicity or synchromysticism or conspiracy, the amount of coincidences and relationships between people, particularly it's like today they say follow the money or whatever. But in older cases and stuff related to the UFO phenomenon, you really had to know where someone was placed in the military or intelligence to know what type of disinformation, why that disinformation was being put out there. And we know the whole entire history of all television and all movies related to UFOs or aliens was entirely co opted all the way up to Dark Skies and X Files, minimally by agents snooping around and trying to be helpful or adding their own 2 cents or the to a script or a film, or the military directly saying, look, we'll give you planes and tanks and everything else to make your Transformers movie. But when we talk about Werner von Braun, when we talk about the moon, and when we talk about this or that, it has to be said like this, or we're going to take the pages of script out and replace them with that. And anyone who doesn't believe the extent to which I'm explaining this is done, check out Robbie Graham's Silver Screen Saucers, a wonderful book that he allowed me to see a few months before it came out, some years ago, and Nick Redfern's Science Fiction Secrets. So Robbie Graham's Silver Screen Saucers and Nick Redfern's Science Fiction Secrets will give you all the knowledge you need to know about even old fantasy stories and fairy tales being influenced by the government or the military through every single TV show that had a single episode that was just a joke about a landing UFO or just a joke about one character seeing an alien, all the way up to the major blockbuster films like Transformers or Independence Day, we're all so intimately screwed with by intelligence organizations or the military industrial complex or military contractors that it's impossible to break apart from anyone's creative vision. We think that the Duffer Brothers with Stranger Things and Steven Spielberg are so brilliant for coming up with and utilizing such ideas about space or mind control or aliens. But think about how much that media is co-opted to form a timeline, a narrative throughout the decades you're alive, to think that UFOs are this, then that, to think the government thinks UFOs are this, then that, to think that most people think alien abduction is this, but what it really is that. But if you study any of those things, you know they're very different from the way they're portrayed on TV, but there's still the use of some things. So it's like the disinformation that comes out of AFOSI. It's like peppered with true information and peppered with absolute red herring, just abstract craziness. And that's how we get very quickly to thinking the MJ-12 documents may or may not be correct, all the way up to Eisenhower definitely met with aliens, all the way up to the Dulce base and all these other factors that came out of basically science fiction authoring by military or intelligence officials. And then today we still have to break apart what the internet knows as far as images of some place or some facility, or someone who's retired or whistleblower talking about some place, facility, or the use of some alien material or whatever. Didn't mean to get into the UFO thing, but that's a very, very complicated thing when it comes to disinformation and just TV and movies. We already have a huge equation on our hands that's not at all like, well, creative people make art about aliens, and other people author books about aliens. The end. It's in fact so multifaceted with so many layers wanting the public to think a certain way about a thing or think a specific event or person was the way they want to construe it. It's almost impossible to untangle, but some authors have, and other authors have written something so comprehensive that it transcends those levels of confusion. So, like your Val Valerian, your Jacques Vallée, people like that out there, you can always trust them to maybe have some very strange theories, maybe have some real grounded, interesting facts, but come about the whole curriculum in a very creative and new way, where you're not reading the same old thing about Betty and Barney Hill or Roswell or whatever, framed the same old way you're supposed to believe. It's interesting because when you watch a lot of modern alien and UFO documentaries, they show my labs. They tell you people are being abducted and they go into the UFO and there's just 3.5 foot tall gray aliens with almond eyes and wraparound eyes around the top of the head and notches for a nose and a little slit for a mouth, and they show human beings in military clothes taking drugged people into hospital like facilities or underground facilities. So that's another weird game they play. We're going to show you what's actually happening, but we're going to explain and use testimony that just talks about little green men moving you into a craft or something.
What's your conclusion?
On what, buddy?
Just what do you think we should do next?
Oh, let me look back at those notes real quick. You can totally pick, bro, but
Because I
we could
gotta
do
admit,
the
to give you a compliment real quick, like the way that this is set up, like the subject matter that we've gone through, one thing has led to another. And then this kind of, if you excuse the pun, kind of puts a capstone on all of those different concepts that we've gone over. And but
yeah.
I know that I don't know if you
I
got
think
something planned, but
Yeah, I think the next one would be the Drag It Invasion America Spielberg series with the Ninja Turtles season 10, the False Flag Alien Invasion. And then we could do the other UN or False Flag Alien Invasions, or we could do the other mentions of dregs and Dragets, even in Conan and stuff like that. Or, of course, if you're bored, you want to switch it up a little, we could do another reptilians, we could do mutation. There's false memories and implanted microchips.
bro,
There's
there's
the
a
weird,
lot of reptilian stuff. There's a lot
yeah.
of just the
We could do a whole
lizard
NASA
stuff.
one again, probably. But the something about aliens would probably be best, and I think the large scale invasions on multiple shows, whether
Well, don't
they're
forget we already did the false flag alien invasion, but I can't remember. Let's see. Let's go back and look at what we've gotten already done.
so if we
So,
covered 3 of them in that episode, we have about 3 more because I don't think we got Cops and Men in Black on that one. But yeah, there's a lot of still related themes to what we're doing. Like the dreg thing is very interesting, and getting into Tony J is an interesting thing while we're just looking at cartoons in general because of how many villains and sort of spiritual entities and Egyptian gods he happened to play on Gargoyles and Ninja Turtles and things like that throughout the 90s. Oh, and there's still more NASA space stuff. Wait, sorry. So there's a lot of Johnny Quest, and we can cover aliens in Washington with that alien episode, or we could cover
oh,
the Book of Rage with the NASA stuff. But either way, we should get in some Johnny Quest and Mighty Max. I'm eager to enter both of those shows.
oh, that sounds cool. That sounds like a nice change up too.
Yeah, and we still have Cops. That's in multiple, like the
Oh,
COPS abbreviated animated
yeah, I'm a
show.
big fan because I'm a huge fan of. I don't know if you know who like Bert Sears is,
I
but the
don't.
guy who designed the figures for Cops.
Oh, okay. I know Aeon
Let's see.
Flux. Peter Chung worked on that concept art or something.
Okay, so
Oh, and
let's
there's
see
also
here.
V
I need to do a
Childhood
playlist. I
and
have not done a playlist. So the first one, Frank Zero's presents Saturday morning cartoons, was the Adventures at the World Trade Center. And
okay.
that one had, like, if I remember correctly, it had gargoyles, Ghostbusters, and turtles.
Yeah.
Then we had Wildcats. Yeah, this was the Ancient Aliens or a psyop. That was like Wildcats. What was the name of that one show with the weird AI computer guy and they all had like vehicles and shit too?
Sky Surfer Strike Force.
Boom. Very hot. Very hot.
Yeah.
And then of course G.I. Joe, the psyops thing. Then we have, oh yeah, they're good. The classic episode of the Reptilians, which that was a mind blower for me. But that one involved Conan, of course, and then as
Spidey.
well as the Lizard and Serpentor from G.I. Joe.
Okay.
Then the
Yeah. Yeah.
Spider-Man NASA show we had.
Right. Cool, man. Well, yeah,
So
I would
all
say
right, aliens.
we should do the combination of Dreg and the aliens because he plays half the aliens, and I'll explain it. But yeah, we should just do the more large scale alien invasions or false flag alien invasions. I promise it's going to be interesting, kids. It won't just be a bunch of similar episodes with mere aliens. And then yeah, like just for everybody or anybody who's curious, I know we can do at least like 12 more of these just from what I know off the back of my or just from the work I did for Saturday Morning Quest so far. And then every day I keep seeing more episodes of things we could review. But if we want to do a live action one, we should do V and Childhood and add it to the false flag alien invasion series or whatever.
Oh, so
That's just
you're suggesting do a false flag alien invasion live version. I think that's a
oh
dope
yeah,
idea. Do we
we
have
can
3 of
even
those? I mean, we definitely have V, and
um
then
altogether, I think we'd have V childhoods
Childhoods
and
in.
Arthur C. Clarke and Doctor Who. But I'm
Okay.
gonna double check that rather modern but not very recent Doctor Who. And then but we
Mm,
can still do an
interesting.
animated false flag alien invasion before we do any live action because we have Cops, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, Men in Black, I think another G.I. Joe. I know we have a few.
Okay, for all of those who have visited us in the chat group, oh man, it was a pretty active chat this time, and we
Really?
had quite a viewers ditch in and out. So I appreciate
That's
all of
great.
them. I
Yeah, thanks,
appreciate
guys.
all of the newcomers and subscribers that we've had over the last month. I hope that we can continue to do some live shows. Of course, there's plenty more where Frank Zero is concerned.
And yeah,
And
guys, I'll answer your questions or comments as I see them. Honestly, this episode I didn't see many. Maybe I was looking at my feed or something. But usually, if you guys ask me something, I'll try to immediately answer it, or at least take a note of it to get back to you. And always give us your ideas if you want an episode about something, or you'd rather want us to
request.
dig up a specific series or whatever. I'll find a way to make it fit into something interesting, unless it's really, really something horrid. But I'm sure you guys are into cool cartoons and stuff too, so feel free to add any of your ideas or tell us if something's not working for you or whatever. Back to you, back to you, Will, with the weather.
All right, please, please hit the bell, hit notifications, and we'll may or may not get our shit together, and hopefully do these at one time in the morning, and not Saturday afternoon or on Memorial Day or anything like that. Hasta la vista, Frankie. Take it easy.